are going to discuss different new format questions from PMP exam in this video. And we are also going to deep dive into how to attempt each of these questions when we attempt PMP exam. So how to attempt those different format questions and what kind of different format questions are expected in the exam. As we know that PMI has introduced a new format for PMP exam since Jan 2021, and since then, other than multiple choice and multiple option questions, there are also some different format questions expected in the exam, which we are going to discuss. Yeah, so let us get started. My name is Anita Mana. I'm from Certify Era Consulting, and I do conduct different PMP trainings, other project management trainings, agile trainings, and different other technology trainings. Let us get started with these new question types in PMP now. The first type of new format questions is limited fill in the blank questions. So how does a limited fill in the blank question looks? So in these type of questions, there will be some project artifact given in the question, and it is asked to identify which part of the artifact needs to be treated on priority or which needs the attention. So let us look at one of the example limited fill in the blank question. So this is one of the example question. Question number 1. Based on the current risk register and scenario described, which entry should the project manager address on priority? Enter the correct ID in the text box. So we are going to read this document. This is the risk register containing different risks information, and we need to compare between these all risks, and we need to identify which risk needs to be addressed on priority. For example, in this example, the risk number 1, it is low severity risk. Risk number 2 and 3, they are medium severity risks, and risk number 4 is a high severity risks. So we need to address risk number 4 on priority. So the answer for this question will be 4. So this is how we are going to attempt the limited fill in the blank questions in PMP exam. Now let us look at some of the hotspot questions. So in hotspot questions, there might be some graph given in the question, and you need to identify some region that is asked in the question. So for example number 2, that is question number 2, click the area that indicates complicated project. So here there is some graph given, and we need to identify the area which represents the complicated project region. So there are 4 options given. There are 4 regions present in this graph, that is A, B, C and D. So let us understand this graph first. So as to have more clarity about what this graph helps when we are actually tailoring the project or when we are trying to decide the approach for the project. So this graph, this is how the actual graph looks. So in this graph, it is clear that as the uncertainty, the requirements uncertainty and the technical degree of uncertainty increases in the project, the projects will become more and more difficult to handle or manage. If the uncertainty is less, then the project will fall in simple region. This is simple region. And as the uncertainty increases, it will fall in complicated region, and the project might get complicated. And if the uncertainty increases further, it might become complex. So the project might fall in complex region. And when the risks or when the uncertainty is really difficult to handle, then the project will be in chaotic region. So in this question, we need to identify the complicated project region, which is this. So the answer for this question would be C, that is complicated region. So for managing complicated projects and complex projects, we need to consider some approaches such as adaptive approaches. And for managing simple region projects, we might follow the traditional approaches. And for managing the chaotic project or chaotic region projects, we might have to adopt some adaptive approaches, sometimes hybrid approaches, sometimes mix of multiple approaches, so as to deal with that level of uncertainty present in those projects. So this is an example of hotspot question. So such questions are expected in PMP exams. So please be prepared and please practice well with such questions. The next type of new format questions that we are going to discuss are drag and drop questions. Drag and drop questions, they are like match the following that we did in our college school. Yeah, so here there will be some items provided on the left and there will be some methods provided on the right, and we need to match these items with those approaches. So here the question says match the practices by agile frameworks. So there are some practices described on left and there are some frameworks given on right, and we need to drag these items so as to match with the right approach. So remove waste. So the first practice is remove waste. Remove waste as in increasing the efficiency and removing the non-value adding activities from the process. So this is one of the practice that comes from Lean framework. So this remove waste, it matches with Lean framework. So this is how we are going to drag the item onto the empty box so as to match it with the right framework. The next practice, whole team. Whole team as in whole team responsibility, collective ownership. So these kind of practices that we get to hear in extreme programming, that is XP. So whole team matches with XP. So this is how we are going to drag the item to match with the right framework. The next practice is make process policies explicit, which we discussed in Kanban framework. So make process policies explicit is one of the principles of Kanban framework. So it belongs to Kanban framework. Cross team coordination. Cross team coordination is one of the large scale framework practice, and it also indicates that there is some coordination that is happening between multiple teams within the project. And here in this list of frameworks, less is the large scaled Scrum, that is large scaled framework. So cross team coordination, it matches with less. Sprint retrospective. Sprint retrospective is one of the event that we conduct in Scrum framework at the end of each sprint. Goal driven. Goal driven is a practice that we get to hear in an approach where we try to understand a list of given practices, given principles, and we try to choose from the given list of different practices and different tools and techniques. So this approach or this goal driven approach, it belongs to disciplined agile framework. So this is how we are going to attempt drag and drop questions. Let us look at some of the more drag and drop questions now. The next question says match the output by process group. So here there are some outputs that are given in this list and there are some process groups described on the right. We are going to drag these outputs so as to match with the right process group. So let us start with the first item, that is project scope statement. Project scope statement is a project document or project artifact that we create so as to document the scope of the project in detail. And we do this activity as part of planning phase. And this document is created in the planning phase of the project. So it belongs to planning process and it falls under planning process group. So project scope statement, it matches with the planning process group. The next output is stakeholder register. Stakeholder register is an artifact that we create for the first time when we initiate the project. So when we try to identify the stakeholders for the project. So this activity and this document is created for the first time in the initiation of the project. So this document, it falls under initiating process group. No doubt that we also keep on updating this document throughout the project life cycle as and when there are any changes in the stakeholders of the project or when new stakeholders get added in the project. But for the first time, we create this document while we initiate the project. The next output is work performance information. Work performance information we keep on creating throughout the project life cycle as we monitor and control the project. For example, controlling the schedule, controlling the cost. We try to apply some techniques and we try to derive the performance of the project so as to understand whether we are doing good with respect to plan or is there any deviation. So work performance information is created while we conduct monitoring and controlling activities. So it falls under monitoring and controlling process group. The next output is final report. Final report we create as part of project closure. So when we close the project, we try to publish the final project report with all the stakeholders. So it belongs to closing process group. The next output, that is work performance graph. Actually, this is not an output, so it does not belong to any of these process groups. We don't have any output called work performance graph in any of the processes. So this is not going to match with any of these process groups. So we are not going to drag this item. Let us look at the next item, that is deliverables. Deliverables as in the actual product or output that we create as part of a project life cycle. So we try to create the output as part of construction phase or execution phase. So we try to carry out project work and create the deliverables, so it belongs to executing process group. So this is how we are going to attempt drag and drop questions. And work performance graph, as we discussed, this is not an output from any of these processes. So we are not going to drag this item. So this is how we are going to attempt the drag and drop questions. Next question, again from drag and drop. Match the agile terms to its method. So there are some agile terminologies given on the left and there are some agile frameworks or methods described on the right. So we are going to drag these items onto these empty boxes so as to match with the right framework. So the first agile term, that is iteration. Iteration is a term that we keep on using in extreme programming so as to describe the time box, the fixed time box duration, the iteration. So iteration belongs to extreme programming. Sprint is a term that is used to describe the time box in case of Scrum framework. Personal safety is one of the practice which is recommended to be followed as part of Lean framework. Manage the flow is one of the practices that is recommended in Kanban framework. So this is how we are going to attempt the drag and drop questions. And if you want to get access to more such questions to practice for PMP exam, or if you want to get access to some simulators which are exactly like actual PMP exam, so please get in touch with us if you want to get access to more such example questions and simulators. Thank you.